Hello everyone, welcome back. This is episode 6 of Behind the Canvas, and today I'm going to continue with the same subject of last episode, or at least the same location. I started painting some locations in Rhodes in Greece, and I'm also continuing with my purpose of trying to be a little bit more abstract with my paintings. And this time it's actually the opposite of what happened last time. I feel like this painting ended up being a lot more abstract or less of a realistic painting, even though the subject itself is a lot more recognizable and a lot more figurative than the last one. Last episode, I painted just the water rippling and little waves on the shore of the beach, and this time I'm painting actually the same beach. It's the same day, it's almost the same time, maybe a little bit later. Yeah, actually a couple minutes later. But the it's a landscape actually. It's you can see that through the video. You'll start to recognize certain elements that make the landscape quite obvious. But with this one, I can already say from the beginning that I'm much happier with the result. And I'll try to explain the reasons as we go on. But first, thanks again for tuning back and watching this video. Yeah, so I started like I start with most of my paintings. I did a really quick underlining, this time not too detailed, but a really quick underlining with yellow and then with blue. And then I went for the underpainting. Again, I wanted to keep a focus on the light, the really beautiful golden light of the Mediterranean. And this basically meant keeping the highlighted areas in yellow. I wanted a rich yellow, but again, super important to me for some reason to keep that white from the canvas still visible somehow, especially on the sky. So the lower part already, as you can probably imagine, that's the water, and it's starting to become the uh, yeah, the darker area, if I can say it in some way, or the cooler area of the painting. I really quickly moved into a little bit more of detail and started painting some really basic features of the landscape, which are I don't know how to call it, but it was kind of like a little bit of water that entered the beach that was sort of divided by some rocks that were sticking out of the ground. And actually, like I mentioned on the last video, this beach was mostly stone, or it had a lot of rock, really big rocks, and not really a clear, easy access into the water like some other beaches are, where you can just walk walk on the sand and without having any sharp edges or anything. And it created this really nice area where you could see the reflection of the cliff in the distance. Yeah, that's the cliff what I'm painting right now. And I guess the way in which I started painting or approaching this painting was a little bit more organic than last time. I guess last time I was really focused on getting the water right, getting the ripples right, getting the colors right. And this time I don't know, I just started painting, and I noticed that I didn't want to give this painting a lot of detail, uh, because a lot of the painting or a lot of the area in the canvas is covered by the sand, but the sand was in the shadows already, and the only bit that was sticking out was the cliff in the background. And I thought, okay, if I give a lot of detail to this, not the sand, I'm sorry, the edge of the beach. If I give a lot of detail to it, it'll be really unnecessary, because it'll have to be a lot of little tiny dots or little tiny brush strokes I don't know, and that might compete a lot with with the the cliff in the background. And I don't know, this type of I guess I just stopped myself from really wanting. I really succeeded this time at stopping myself at wanting to have everything perfect or having everything there on the canvas and representing it as I was seeing it on the picture. And that's why I jumped immediately into a little bit more detail, as you can see here on the cliff. That's, uh, that's more or less what I did. I focused on the cliff, and it's really interesting because as I was doing this, I kept thinking about two artists that I'm gonna mention right now, that you might know because they're also really big names. The first artist that I thought about was Edward Hopper. I'm really sure that you know who he is. He's best known for this painting that I'm putting on the screen right now called Nighthawks. And he has a lot of really interesting landscapes, some of them sunsets, that really have intense colors, and they manage somehow to feel very lonely, if that makes any sense. Although I wasn't aiming at any point to show or transmit loneliness with my painting. It's just something that, for whatever reason, came up in my mind when I was painting this. I thought about those landscapes and how beautiful they are, even though, yeah, like I said, they show some sort of loneliness or nostalgia and some sort of emptiness. And the second artist that I that I thought about while painting my my landscape was Munch, or I don't know how you pronounce his last name, to be honest. He was from Norway, and I'm also really sure that you know who he is. Well, when you see this painting that I'm putting on the screen right now, it's called The Scream. And I thought about him not because of the colors that he used or the motifs, subjects that he painted, but the way he painted. His brush strokes, they seem very loose and very expressive, and kind of has like a lot of his works kind of have this unfinished look to them. They are obviously finished, and I really like how he just focuses on expressing some specific factor of the subject or whatever it is that he wants to express, some characteristic, some message. Or what I'm trying to say is like it's the the message is a bit more important than actually, let's say, finishing the painting in the most traditional way. And by that I mean like really making sure that there is no spaces in between brush strokes and that everything has a really good color combination. Although obviously this looking at through a more traditional, I guess, academical point of view of how he painted, of how people painted back then. And that is something that really helped me to, I guess, not fall into my usual habit of wanting everything super realistic. Just thinking about that, it can stay like that. The painting, it doesn't have to have a ton of detail. And I was actually planning on doing a second session, a second painting session for adding the details exactly of the part that I'm showing you right now on screen. So which is the beach. I wanted to show a little bit more of the stone, and I thought, no, I don't need it like that. It can stay like this. And I really liked how you can see the brush stroke guiding you towards the cliff. And now I did end up adding a little bit more detail to the cliff in the background, uh, because I guess I started thinking about another artist, the one I mentioned on the last episode, Sorolla, because he also has in his later works some landscapes that are almost abstract, and where he really gives a lot more detail to maybe just one area of the painting and then leaves the rest in a very really almost abstract way. Really strong brushwork, and I really like that. I feel like maybe I won't be able to completely try abstract painting or really find something where I feel comfortable there completely, but I like the mix of I like the combination of maybe just focusing on one subject, giving it more detail, obviously not making it photorealistic or anything. I don't like that either. But then making it clear that this is the subject and then the rest can be a little bit less finished, a little bit less detailed. I don't know. To me, that's really interesting, and I'm gonna try to continue this practice of maybe thinking about these three artists while I do my next painting. For the time being, I'll just uh, let you continue watching the video, and I will comment on a couple of things that I thought were interesting as I continued with the painting in a little bit. So something I wanted to mention is also the color combinations that I did for this little bit that you see me painting right now. That's directly the underneath the, or not directly underneath, but that's the reflection of the cliff. And the idea at the beginning was again to leave a little bit more of that white from the canvas, but for some reason I like this color so much, and I thought, okay, maybe I should give it a little bit more thickness, and that was the right call. That was definitely the right call. Otherwise, it would have looked a little too artificial, I think. And I like that it makes the cliff stand even more than if I had left the reflection part with a thinner layer of color. like I mentioned before, I did think about Sorolla with this when painting the cliff, because I wanted it to have a bit more detail, and he is really good at that. I actually feel like I wasn't copying him, but I was very, very heavily influenced by this painting you're seeing on the screen. It is really beautiful to me, and even though it's representing a cliff that's really, really far away, you can still get the sense of rockiness and that Mediterranean um, light and color in a really good way without you really seeing the shapes themselves of the rocks, if that makes any sense. So I was trying to approach that in a similar way, adding a little bit of pink colors, a little bit of oranges, peaches. Peaches, I don't know why I said that, but I guess that's the color I was thinking or going for, and a lot more white. The rest of the painting doesn't have that much white. I did use a little bit for the water, just a tiny bit, not too much. But the cliff does have, as you can see on the brush right now, a fair amount of white. And actually, something I really, really liked at the end, in the end, was the sky. It's the same underpainting from the very beginning. I didn't change anything there. It's the same really watered down yellow that I used, and that's exactly what I meant by keeping in and appreciating the value of the white of the canvas, because it's really transmitting a ton of warmth and light. I also thought of adding a little bit more color, maybe a little bit of blue, a little bit of red or orange, but then I don't know, I wasn't convinced. I think it would have been too much and the painting would have lost the light that I was trying to capture. So in this regard, I'm really happy with that result, just leaving it like that. Yeah. Compared to the last painting I did, I much prefer this one. I don't know. I'm gonna put the last painting on the screen as well, the one I did for last episode, so you can compare and so you can tell me what you think. But yeah, I really like it like this. Also, I hope I can continue to replicate this sort of mechanic that I mentioned before, keeping something in detail and then leaving the rest just, I don't want to say unfinished, because that kind of means like I didn't achieve what I wanted. It's more like not as worked as maybe the rest of the painting. So if you managed to watch all the way to the end, thank you again so much, and I hope you again learned something, or that this painting video was somewhat helpful for you. And I'll see you next time. Remember to comment, like, and subscribe.